I think tonight is newcomers night. And if there are any newcomers out there in the Zendo, are there any newcomers? Can you raise your hand if, oh yeah. Hey, welcome. Welcome to the Village Zendo. Uh, we need comers. We need you guys. And we're so glad that you're here. And so glad that you are trying out this practice. And we'll do everything we can to support you. And thank you. I also want to say hello to random YouTube viewers who might some miraculous way see this video. I hope you get something from my talk tonight. It is spring here in Catskill, although it's cold and rainy outside. I have noticed some daffodils have popped up, and the daffodils have popped up from the mud. And I was thinking maybe the daffodils are urging us to rise up from the mud our government is trying to bury us in. You know the times are tough when daffodils start telling you to fight. Tonight my talk is about delusion and how to be without delusion. But first, a disclaimer. I am not without delusion myself. And I don't think any human being is completely without delusion. Part of our nature, I think. That said, it does seem to me that there are levels of delusion, or at least levels of awareness to our delusional state. I'm talking about delusion tonight because I really feel like our government and the people that support it are suffering from an enormous, complete, and frightening delusion. And we have to fight against it. And I'm trying to figure out what the best way is to do that. The dictionary says that delusion is a false belief or judgment about external reality held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. The worst part of delusion is that while you might be able to see it clearly in others, it is almost impossible to see your own delusions. That is why you can't tell people that they're deluded. You can't point to people's delusions and say, hey, you've got it wrong. This just makes them angry. And the more angry their reaction is, probably the deeper the delusion is. So how do you deal with other people's delusions? You don't. It's tempting to react. It's tempting to react. And it's tempting to call them out. But I think in a Zen way, it's better to step back. Delusions are very convincing. And if it were easy to see them, that would just be an illusion. Illusions are just tricks that you can detect, and you can choose to accept them or not. For example, my wife Dina and I and our 9-year-old granddaughter watched a movie called Paddington 2. It is a cute live-action movie with a realistic talking bear cub. Now, we know, and my 9-year-old granddaughter knows, that bears don't speak English or have marmalade sandwiches in their hats, but we're willing to accept the illusion that is created by those filmmakers. It's fun. And we can decide ourselves that it's just a movie. But like I said, delusions are not easily detected. And as the definition states, delusions are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. Our society is overloaded with delusions, and I have some examples for you. Did you know that you can live forever with a combination of exercise, special diet, and mental stimulation? Yeah. Did you know that the more money you make, the more money you have increases your ability to be happy? Did you know that? Did you know that the meaning of life is out there? All you have to do is find the right spiritual practice to get it. Did you know that freedom means fewer rules and the ability to do whatever you want? Did you know that a strongman authoritarian leader can end all the nation's problems by crushing the opposition? Yeah. And those are just a few of the delusions that constantly plague us. From a Zen perspective, there's one master delusion that creates all the others. One delusion to rule them all, you might say. Did you know that you are a separate self living inside your body, surrounded by a difficult world that you must somehow control or escape from? Did you know that? It's the grand old separate self delusion. The truth is that we are in a big collaboration together. That's actually the Buddha Dharma. We're in a big collaboration. And everything is dependent on everything else. And everything ends too. So there is only the golden moment of now with nothing to cling to and no self that's separate from everything. It's an epic battle to fight the grand old separate self delusion. It's actually our task. It's actually our task as Zen students. We need to clearly see the delusion of the separate self. And especially for Zen teachers, we must somehow guide others to see this delusion for themselves. As I said before, you can't tell people they're deluded. They have to discover it on their own. Now, of course, there's an old Chinese story that I think shows how two Zen adepts managed to become aware of their delusion. And it's one of my favorites. It's case 23 of the Blue Cliff Record, Pao Fu's Summit of the Mystic Peak. I've actually used this koan in another talk, but it really is great. So once, when Pao Fu and Chang Ching were wandering in the mountains, Pao Fu pointed his hand and said, "Right here is the summit of the Mystic Peak." Chang Ching said, "Indeed it is. What a pity." That's the story. So these two ancient Chinese monks were probably on a pilgrimage or maybe seeking a reclusive teacher in the mountains. And somehow they saw the delusion of it all. The summit of the Mystic Peak exists nowhere else, right here. The summit of the Mystic Peak is only happening right now. So Pao Fu pointed his hand and said, "Right here is the summit of the Mystic Peak." And then his pal Chang Ching agreed. He probably had been studying the Buddha Dharma for many years. He replies, "Indeed it is, what a pity." It's sad sometimes when our delusions are exposed, especially delusions that are meant to be beneficial, like the possibility of finding spiritual meaning somehow. or the delusion of some kind of success, some kind of win that will bring great happiness. It's a pity to have to expose those and see them as unreal. What a pity. And that's what's great about this simple anticlimactic story, because all we need is right here. It's hard to accept and not very exciting, but thus it is. Now, for you guys in the Zendo, you're looking at the altar, and Manju Shri, the embodiment of wisdom, is sitting there. And he holds a sharp sword that is used to cut through delusion. Manju Shri is actually always on the altar in Zen meditation halls. And, you know, we could have a Buddha or Avalokiteshvara on the Zen altar, but instead we have Manju Shri. I don't think it's random. Manju Shri's presence is telling us we need to cut away at delusions. But how? I said that it's almost impossible to see our delusions, but for Zen students, almost impossible is the important phrase, because meditation gives us a possibility. When we sit in meditation long enough, we can start to catch glimpses of delusions that constantly plague us. I don't know how this is going to happen for you. And I can only describe this from my own experience. So when I'm sitting in zazen, after a while, I start to see the patterns of my constantly arriving thoughts. Thoughts are just always coming. They're always being produced by your body. And there's a pattern that forms, I think, or I feel like it is. And it's like hearing the same song over and over again. At first it's amusing, and then it starts becoming boring and then frustrating. I'm thinking, where did this pattern come from and why is it playing over and over again? Then if I'm lucky, and I've been doing this for years, I can let the pattern fade out. I start to hear the sounds in the room. I see the light coming in the window. And this week, I feel the pain in my shoulder because I damaged my rotator cuff muscle. It's very painful, but I forget about it sometimes. But during meditation, I feel it. And then if I'm lucky, I feel my breath miraculously coming in and out. And I can watch that. It's so beautiful when you think about it. And if I'm very, very lucky, I notice the other meditators around me, living and breathing and having their own experiences. It's great. None of us are separate from each other or from anything. It's really not that hard to see. Outside of delusion, there's a real world that's waiting for all of us. A world of sunlight and clouds and the daffodils and the mud. Without delusion, you can simply feel what you feel. Without delusion, you can hear what you hear and see what you see. Without delusion, thoughts can come and go, just like the cars that are passing by on Main Street out there. Without delusion, we can loosen up on the ways we imagine our life could be or should be, our trauma and our conditioning, our joy and our sorrow can come into focus. Without delusion, the challenges and problems that face us can really only be solved with hard work. The hard work of actually solving problems and the compromises and all the things that have to be done. not imaginary quick fixes or blame. Without delusion, we can let go of the thoughts that hold us and cause us to cling to what's not real. Pao Fu was brave enough to say, right here is the summit of the mystic peak. And Chang Ching was honest enough to feel the disappointment and say, indeed it is. What a pity. To end my talk, I have a poem that I've written. I think I'm going to take a drink first. My poem is a true story, and it happened on, I think, on Sunday. My poem is called Standing in the Cold Rain at a Protest in Saugerties. Saugerties, little town south of here. Kind of near Woodstock, the town of Saugerties. Okay. Because there is suffering, there is an end to suffering. Standing in the cold rain at a protest in Saugerties didn't seem effective. The crowds in New York, Detroit, Denver, and LA will be huge, I thought, maybe thousands, hopefully hundreds of thousands. Standing in the cold rain at a protest in Saugerties, most of the crowd had gray hair like me. Many held creative, angry signs, soggy cardboard and construction paper, demanding change. A volunteer said she counted around 300 people standing in the cold rain at a protest in Saugerties. Because there is delusion, there is an end to delusion. Standing in the cold rain at a protest in Saugerties, I could see it, hear it, feel it, and be it. So it was real and effective. And passing cars honked their horns, and the crowd cheered, and the rain was cold. And because there is suffering, there is an end to suffering. Thank you all for listening.